All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Keeping Score with Josh and Ray, a podcast show dedicated to bringing analysis of record sports around the country. I'm Josh,
And I'm Ray.
and we have our guest today, Eli Horowitz, the associate video editor of the Daily Targum,
How's it going,
and
guys?
we're going to talk about today the MLB's idea for starting games as early as May and how other pro leagues may follow suit. And then in our news segment, what we've been watching, we'll talk about what sports related content we've been watching in the absence of current sports. So we can start off with the MLB news recently that they're working on a possible plan to have the season start in May and all the games being played in Arizona in a select few stadiums. So the players are supposed to be quarantined from their families for like 4 months or so, and they're going to be playing double headers during, double headers, 2 games per day over the season, and with no fans in the stadium. So, what do you guys think about that?
I think there's a lot of different aspects that you have to look over when they're deciding to do a plan like this. I mean, like the part you said that I think is going to be very controversial is the players being away from their families for 4 to 5 months. Um, I don't know if that's something that a lot of players are going to like or even agree with when they try and get this proposal passed, if that's the route they go. There were a couple players that spoke out already. Chris Sale didn't like it. There are a couple others. I don't think Brett Anderson liked it on the Milwaukee Brewers. But a couple players also do. I guess. I mean, I don't know if they saw this part of the plan, but they seem to be in favor of it as a whole. I think Adam Ottavino on the Yankees is one of those players. So that's definitely one of the things that is a little bit controversial about this.
Yeah, so in my mind, this is the sort of thing where it's going to be very controversial. There was a lot of knee-jerk reactions to it. Stephen A. Smith and Mark Teixeira came out and basically blasted the plan. And they said this was the sort of thing that isn't logistical. It's something that MLB is putting in place without a full plan. And to be fair, this isn't what they said they are definitely going to do. It's something that was leaked, probably by Major League Baseball, to see what the reaction would be from the fans and from the players. I'm not sure where I stand on it yet, just because I would love to have baseball back. And in this time, like I feel like everyone needs sports, and it would be amazing to watch baseball. If we have games that are played in Arizona and say they do kind of like 3 games a day or 4 games a day or however they plan it out, I'm probably going to be watching at least 2 or 3 of those games. That's how like hungry I am for baseball right now, and just like some form of entertainment. But there's things about this proposal so far that I'm very iffy on. And probably the biggest thing, what you were saying, Josh, or what you were saying, right, is the players being away from their families for 4 months or however long the season would be. That's something I don't know if you're going to have all the players on board with. And like you said, a few players have already kind of spoken out about it. You're probably going to have a few players that are for it as well. For me, I feel like the main thing with this is that if the players support it, then I'm honestly all for it. I feel like if we can have baseball and we can still play baseball in this current climate, if it's safe for players and if we can do it knowing that we can play even like half the season, then truthfully, I'm all on board for this type of proposal.
Yeah, I think if it gets cleared by medical professionals and if the players like it, then there's no reason
Mhm.
not to. But with that being said, obviously Chris Sale doesn't like it. He's not going to be the only one that doesn't like it. And I can understand why they wouldn't like it, honestly, because I mean, everyone being in Arizona, away from their loved ones, playing with no fans, it is a little bit depressing.
Mhm.
Even though it would bring baseball back, and that would be a huge statement, for the country, also bringing the sport back. But at the same time, I do feel for the other side, that's not in favor. So I would say I'm kind of in the middle. Um, I think it's an idea to build on. I think maybe they should be able to like see their family at some point if they could get tested or something to make sure. You know what I mean? I think, as long as I think they should do regular testing. As long as the tests are available. And then if someone tests positive, then shut it down. For however long. But
Well, that's one of the interesting things. Sorry to cut you off about like
yeah.
what they were saying is that they said that they would have in this scenario they would make sure that they would have not only enough testing, but a point where if a player was to get confirmed for coronavirus, that they wouldn't have to shut down the whole league, that they could just quarantine that specific player. And that's kind of like another part of this, which I am kind of concerned about. I feel like there still is a lot of questions that we don't know, a lot of things that are kind of up in the air. One of those things being how long this is going to last for, and if that's safe. If a player is diagnosed with it, is it safe to have other players playing with them? What do you guys think about that?
I think that calls into question, honestly, if is this really necessary?
Mm-hmm.
We all want to see baseball resume. I mean, it's one of the biggest sports in the country. People want it back. But at the same time, with the things that they're talking about, if a player does happen to contract coronavirus, which is possible, and even just some of the, aspects of the proposal that they put forth, like no mound visits, players sitting in the stands, 6 feet apart from each other, it makes you think, like, is it actually necessary to resume in early May? I mean, you have the NBA commissioner. He stated that they won't even make a decision until May at the earliest. So I don't really know if it's exactly necessary to begin playing at this point. I mean, besides from the actual players, there are other people who are going to be at the stadium. There's medical staff, there's training staff, there's
Umpires.
the people who actually run the broadcast, umpires. So I think it might be a little bit of an unnecessary risk to have all these people playing together. And, baseball, it's a close game too. They talked about umpires standing a little bit behind home plate, and like I said, the no mound visits. But like, I don't know if that would be the best thing when we can just maybe wait it out a little bit, and then kind of go from there once the coronavirus hopefully dies down a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, no mound visits and the umpire standing far back, and it's all a lot. It's like the more I think about it, the more I don't like it, but I still want to see the sport. So it's just it's like I'm on both at the sides at the same time. But yeah, I think I agree with the thing about Adam Silver waiting. I think this entire time the NBA has handled this whole thing perfectly. So I think they're the ones that they're kind of like the standard right now. But I think waiting longer is the right move. I mean, because there's so much unpredictability with this whole situation. It's true that by June everything might be back to normal again. Or maybe it could be worse. We just don't know. So
it's strange because I feel like baseball is in kind of like the most awkward position right now. Because if you think about it, like NBA, yes, it was coming to the end. We were starting to go into that playoff stretch. But NBA technically can be played anytime. And I mean, I don't mean to say like, it would be terrible for the players and everything. And they want to be in the most comfortable position they can. But it's not really that unthinkable to say that the NBA could pick up, say, in like, September or October. Like, I don't think that would be too big of an issue. You could always push the next season back a little bit, mainly because it is like an indoor sport. And that's like the same thing for NHL too. You can kind of do the same thing with them. And then football is kind of like in this position where they don't start games until August and September anyway. We obviously don't know how long this is going to last, but they seem to be in the best position. But baseball is kind of like in this very awkward position where, they play 162 games and it's during the warm weather months. I don't think you can like push back baseball to say November or December. Because I think that could lead to more player injuries, and also just because I don't think you can play baseball in those months. I don't see how that's possible. So if this is like a solution to that problem where we still could see, say, 80 games or, maybe even 100 games that stretch until, October or even mid-October, then I could see this happening. And I think the problem is no matter what, if sports return in the next couple of months, it's going to be different, no matter what the sport is. And we might be saying the same thing about football come August, because football is obviously a very high contact sport. So it might be a little strange to see sports played this way, but I think ultimately, like, that might be something we have to get used to, at least for this season.
Yeah, that's true what you said about how it's going to be different no matter what. And, and that's why I'm okay with, starting later and shortening the regular season and stuff like that. Like, for example, if the MLB had 81 games instead of 162, for the regular, like split in half. Like, I think everyone will be fine with that because they just want the sport back, It's the same like if the NBA cut the rest of the regular season and went straight to the playoffs in July or something, Like, I'd be fine with that too.
I mean, I think the fans will be fine with that though, but I don't know about the actual teams themselves. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think with the MLB, obviously they have a very long season, but if you did cut it down to maybe half to 81 games, I don't know if the teams would necessarily be happy about having that short of a season, because when you look back on it, teams are winning championships after playing 162 games. So say if you had a team play only 81 and they won a championship, every year from now on, you'd be looking back at the season and saying, okay, they only had to do it with 81. They didn't go through the end of the season slump. They didn't go through the hot, dog days of summer when you've already played 130, 140 games. And there's a lot of things that I think that come with having played an extended season. And I think that falls in line a little bit with the NBA too. Because say if you just cut the rest of the season, went to the playoffs, there was a lot of teams that were kind of on the bubble or haven't necessarily lived up to their expectations yet. Just look at the Sixers, what they've done. They've fallen short of their expectations a little bit. I think they were hoping to kind of use the later half of the season to step it up a little bit, and maybe get a better seeding in the playoffs. So I don't know if the teams would necessarily be happy with the whole cutting the length of the seasons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see what you're saying. I think that no matter what happens, there's going to be a little asterisk for whatever sport there is for a while. But it's not anybody's fault. You know what I mean? That's the thing. It's not like the lockout that happened a few years ago. It's not like that. It's not like a financial thing or something. It's just like there's literally nothing anybody could do. So what I do see your point about how like it's not fair for the teams that had to go through the whole season and win. But I mean, it's either win with the shortened season or have no season. So it's like which option's better, I mean,
yeah, exactly. That's a good point. When you look back on like 2020 right now, I think like there is going to be an asterisk. Like I think people are just going to have to deal with the fact that this was like, I don't want to say like an illegitimate season. That's not what I want to say at all. But that this was a different type of season for any sport. And you're right. This isn't like the lockout. This isn't like in 81, I think it was, or 85, 95, when baseball didn't happen for like, the first couple months of a season or whatever. We're talking about major changes to baseball. And I'm curious to get your guys' like opinions on this, because a couple of the things that they want to implement or possibly start implementing if this was a shortened season would be they put down an electronic strike zone, I guess for the safety of not having umpires there, but also kind of experimenting with quote unquote robotic umpires.
Yeah.
Having regular use of on-field microphones for the players. So us getting to hear players on the field, they kind of get to talk to us in the broadcast, which I kind of like that. That kind of sounds fun. And then no mound visits, which that would be interesting. We're talking about players pitching in the heat of the summer in Arizona. So to not have mound visits sounds a little illogical, but I'm curious to get your guys' opinions on that.
Yeah. As a former pitcher in high school myself, I don't like no mound visits. I don't think that's good for pitch. It's just not. They don't seem that important, but they really are. Like, I mean, both for the catcher and the manager to go, because there's just so many in-game adjustments. Sometimes the catcher needs to calm them down, or like there's just so many things that mound visits are for. So I think that part is one of my least favorite parts of the proposal.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. Mound visits are very, very important. If a guy's getting rocked or he just let up 3 walks in a row, you want to go down and talk it out with him.
Yeah.
If you take out mound visits, then honestly, it's just up to the pitcher to kind of fix it himself. And I don't really think that's the way that they've been brought up through the minor leagues, even if it maybe should have been. But that's not the way that they've kind of been groomed over these past couple of years. And as far as the electronic strike zone, Eli, I agree with what you said about how it might be a little bit of an experimentation because they've been talking about doing this for a couple of years now.
For years
now,
They've been talking about that.
Yeah. I mean, I think now they're just kind of looking at it and saying, wow, like, this is a nice opportunity for us we got here. We can kind of try this out and then see if it actually works so we can maybe implement it in the future. Mm-hmm. Because I don't think Manfred is, too against the idea of it.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting because I think that this season paves the way for we kind of have like this quote unquote war going on inside the MLB with traditionalist baseball fans who are like, no, don't change any rules. The game is how the game is, and that's in response to obviously pace of play, getting rid of like mound visits and stuff like that. Then you have like kind of these new generational baseball fans who say, let's kind of like experiment a little bit. And this is something that MLB has been lacking in like sorely. The NBA has changed rules over the years. The NFL has changed a lot of rules over the years. And that's because they've adapted, obviously, to kind of a newer way of watching sports, which is to say kind of faster moving. And that's not to say baseball, that's not to say baseball necessarily has a pace of play issue. I do think sometimes it does. But I feel like in a season that could be shortened, you're right. Logistically, you could have experimentation with the league and see how you can possibly make it more attuned to what the game is now, which is to say something that's a little bit faster, that maybe is a little bit shorter because games have started to run into that 3 and 4 hour time frame, and that feels long. And I don't know. I don't know if it necessarily fixes the problems that baseball has, because I think baseball still has a few problems, and I'm saying that as a huge baseball fan myself. But I don't think I would mind a lot of these changes, to be honest with you. Just the chance to see baseball is kind of like all I want right now.
Yeah, I definitely think the new like changes, like the strike zone thing. I think that's not a bad idea because I think the strike zone's always been an issue with umpires because there's so many different like versions of it they have. So. Yeah, I would be all. I'm all for the MLB experimenting with new stuff because I understand where the old fans are coming from, but like as time passes, you have to innovate a little bit. You have to adapt. Yeah. I mean, the reason why the MLB lags behind the NBA and NFL a little bit is because of how long it takes. I think.
Yeah.
Day in and day out. You like myself, I can't watch an entire regular season game on TV anymore because it's like it gets unbearable sometimes.
It's long. Yankee games especially.
Yeah. I mean, I still watch the playoffs, but
yeah,
the regular if you're at the game, it's different. But if you're watching on TV like a regular season game, in the middle of the season, it's just like, so yeah, I would definitely be all for the experimenting. So that might be a silver lining, like Ray said. It might be their opportunity. Right.
So do you guys think a month from now that this will happen, that they'll put this plan into place, or do you think there's just too many questions right now?
I think there's a little bit too many questions right now. But if they keep developing it, maybe, and get more support, then maybe in June or something. I don't think.
Yeah, I'm gonna say. I think by Memorial Day, we might have a concrete plan in place. Mm-hmm. But early May, I don't really see it happening. There's too many questions that they have to answer. There's too many logistical problems, and I just don't think it's really necessary for them to start playing right now. So I think Memorial Day we'll have a plan in place. Maybe by early June they'll be playing. Before that, I don't think they'll be on the field.
Yep, I agree as well. Give it a couple months and see what happens. But I think right now there's too many questions and too many things that are up in the air.
So we can now go to the what we've been watching section. Recently without sports. For me, I've been watching a lot of old highlights. So like I was just telling Eli before we started recording, I was watching in the 2013 finals. I think it was Game 6, where it was the Heat versus Spurs, and Ray Allen hit that corner three to tie the game at the last second. So beautiful. Never get too old.
It was an awesome game.
What about you guys?
I've been watching honestly a lot of just baseball games. MLB Network has played a couple games because today they had on, I think it was the Diamondbacks versus Brewers in the 2011 NLDS. But also just the local networks have had a lot of games that have been pretty interesting. NBC Philly has played Roy Halladay's postseason no-hitter, Cole Hamels no-hitter. So honestly, there's a lot of things that you can look for, and just like your regional networks that you've been watching.
Yeah, against your Phillies too with the Roy Halladay no-hitter.
Roy Halladay.
He was with the Phillies. Yeah. Never mind. So what I've been watching a lot of the MLB Network reruns as well. I saw Aaron Boone's Game 7 2003 walk-off home run the other day. That was an awesome game. And then I've been watching, it's weird, they're playing a lot of the All-Star games on MLB Network too. And normally, All-Star games, it's whatever. But when you see a lot of these guys, like Robinson Cano was on the Yankees in 2011, and they were showing the 2011 All-Star game, and I was like, oh my God, I'm so sentimental for, like these old games. Like it's so sad right now. But I've been watching a lot of that, and then MLB Network also has these segments where they'll do greatest, I think calls of all time is what they call it, greatest announcing calls. And that's one of my favorite segments that they do. It's really, really entertaining. So, I mean, if you like to hear baseball announcers, call great games, I totally recommend that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll have to keep watching these old games for a while. So it's good that you can.
Yeah.
But with that, that's all for today. Join us next time on Keeping Score for more sports updates and analysis, and make sure to follow the Daily Targum on our Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube for more content. Thanks, and we'll see you next week.
Later.